शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानामेकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्वजं वेट्रिवेल् मुरुगनुक्ku हर हरोहरा लोकवीर्यं महापूज्यं सर्वरक्षाकरं विभुं पार्वतीहृदयानन्दं शास्तारं प्रणमाम्यहं। स्वामिये शरणमय्यप्पा। वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्तप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्रीपार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചനാനിന്നോടായി ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടതോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so we have 4 more stanzas on 20. So we'll finish that and then we'll jump to the thing. Okay. So I think Pratibha Garu, you had signed up to 20, right? So you can be a student for the first half, and then Viji, you can be student. Okay. Stanza 7. Nava Bhavan. Sorry. So yeah. नवा भवन योहि वरा नवान्ये त्वपालयन् भारतवर्षखण्डान् सैकात्वशीतिस्तव शेषपुत्राः tapo baladhu surabhu yamiyuhu. So just to recap, right, we were seeing in the hierarchy of Priyavrata, the other son of Swayambhuva Manu. So his son Agnidhra, and then Nabhi, then to Nabhi and Meru Devi, who did yajna, who asked for the Lord himself, to, some son like the Lord himself. He said, I myself will be born as one of my avataram, and then that's how this Rishabha is born, because he's the greatest of the being. Because right from when he was born, he was very neutral, right? He understood all the things. He had a good control of his senses and his mind and everything. And so this Rishabha then continues to rule, and then he does all these great things. And then we left it off at when Indra, when he was trying to block the sacrifice here, he was trying to hold off from it raining. However, Rishabha, with his yogic power, was able to bring rain to the region, so that Ajanabha, which was the name of that region, he became even more fertile because Rishabha was able to have the rain, rain in that region. So Indra then gave his wife Jayanti, his daughter Jayanti in marriage to Rishabha. So that's kind of where we stopped, and then we said Rishabha then had he had 100 children. The first one was somebody called as Bharata, and because of that, it is called as Bharata Khande, Bharata Varshe, Bharata Khande. That area became known as Bharata area thing. So this, like I was telling last time, right? This is a huge story about this Bharata, right? So, and I won't get too much. I'll spend 2 minutes, right? It's such a beautiful story because it talks about how this Bharata was so matured, right? Being the first son of Rishabha Yogeshwara, this kind of goes into a little bit of a tangent, but because it all happens a little later. But he is so matured and so enlightened being, right? That he had everything under control. He did the right things. He was ruling properly, and at the right age, he took up sannyasam. And then he was at a point where he purely because of his penance and because of his powers, yogic powers, he was about to be liberated, right? So it talks through a lot about how he had almost attained that state. So you think of it as he's 99.9% he has attained that state of getting liberation, right? He had reached that state in this birth that he had. However, it talks about how a person who's so matured can suddenly fall from that state, right? So it talks about an incident where, when in his last years, this Bharata was sitting there and he was meditating, and then he sees he's on the banks of a river or a stream. He sees a pregnant deer, a doe, which was going there. It sees a lion coming on one side. So that lion gives a roar. So this pregnant deer is afraid that it's going to die, and its child is also going to die because it's pregnant. So this deer jumps over the water. When the deer jumps over the water, the baby falls off the deer. The newborn falls off, right? And then the deer then goes off to the other side. And the baby falls into the water, and the baby deer is now getting carried away by the water. The deer goes on to the other side where it goes into the cave and gets killed, and that deer dies. So Rishabha, at this age, when he was completely mature, he is supposed to have almost reached that state where he is in one with the Lord. Suddenly sees this incident and he gets very caught up with it, right? He says this poor baby deer fell off the mother's womb and it's getting washed away. So he takes that baby deer, he rescues that baby deer, and then he kind of starts taking care of it because he says it's a baby deer. It doesn't have any mother right now. Who's going to take care of the baby deer? So he takes care of the deer. When you start doing this, what happens is first it talks very nicely about how the first time he used to take 10 minutes out and go feed the baby deer out of his day. Second time, he starts saying, okay, you know what, the baby deer is going to feel hungry now. See, he starts taking more breaks. And it talks very nicely about exactly how our life works, where you get attached to something and then you spend more and more time because you feel they cannot survive without us. And when you read that story, you feel like, oh my God, how can he do this, right? Because he had almost attained liberation. He's giving everything away because he believes that without him, that baby deer cannot survive, to the point where he really starts wondering, now that I've taken care of the deer for so long, for so many years, how can I let it go? Which is all how we feel about our children, right? When our children go to college, we feel like I've taken care of my child for 18 years. How can I let my child go, right? My child cannot survive. That's exactly how this Bharata feels. He says, I cannot now let him go. I should have done it long time back. Now it's too late for me to let it go, right? So he keeps doing this and then he starts falling down because he's not able to spend enough time on his penance and meditation, to the point that when he's about to die, Then one day age comes, right? Then he's completely now given up all these religious things because he's always passionate with the deer. He carries the deer everywhere he goes. That's his child now, right? When he's about to die, you know what is the one thing he thinks? He thinks, if I die, what's going to happen to the deer? He was originally thinking about getting liberated and then wanting to give up his body through yogic means and attain the Lord. Now he says, if I give up my life, what's going to happen to this deer? Right? And then he looks at that form of the deer when he's dying. And whatever you think at the time of your death, that's what you become in the next Janma. Right? So what happens in the next Janma? This Bharata is born as a deer. Now, but however, because of the great work he has done over 70, 80 years of his life, always praying to the Lord, he had one benefit. He still remembered the knowledge from his previous birth. That we're going to see in a lot of cases, right? We're going to see in Gajendra Moksham in a lot of cases, some people, they have done so much punyam that they remember what happened in the previous Janma. So this Bharata remembers it. Now when he's born as a deer, he says, I know what I should not do. He said, I made a big mistake. So he goes back to the same place. He finds a Maharishi's ashramam there, where all these rishis are there, and he gives up hanging out with all the other deer, and he remains in that ashramam. And then he dies, right? Over a period of time, it dies. So he's completely remaining in that circle. So because he remained in the circle of the ashram and he was hearing the good things through his entire life as a deer, next Janmam he's born as a Brahmana. Again, he remembers what he does, what his history is. So this time he says, why did I lose? How did I fall off from all of my previous thing in my 2 Janmams back? Was because I started interacting with something with this, which is material in nature. So in this Janmam, he behaves like he's a mad person. Because does anybody go talk to a mad guy? Nobody, right? So, so he's born in the clan of a Brahmin, his father teaches him everything. But he says, if I start talking to you properly, start getting involved in you. But if I behave like a mad person who's just doing ridiculous things, who's walking around naked, who cannot hear people, who cannot understand people, nobody will talk to me, which means I can be on my own and I can just be doing my prayers. So that's why he's called as Jada Bharata. Jadam. Jadam means a mad person. So finally, anyway, it's a long story, but finally he becomes that. And then finally he attains liberation. So it just talks about how easy, even for a person of that level of caliber, to just slip and fall and then suddenly lose everything, because it's very easy to get attracted to things. Anyway, so this is just talking about his first son is Bharata, and then he had 99 other sons, which we'll see what happens. So Jadabharata is not part of the Narayaneeyam, but it's a very beautiful. He's got so many chapters of the story of Jadabharata, because it talks about how we can get sucked into certain things, right, and cannot come out of it once you get sucked into it. So anyway, stanza 7. Nava bhavan yogi vara navanye, put a plus, twapalayan bharata varsha khandan, saika twashitis tava shesha putraha. So put a visarga comma. Next line is goes away. Tapobhalat bhusura bhuyamiyuhu. Nava bhavan yogivara navanye topalayan bharata varsha khandan, saika twashitis tava shesha putraha, tapobhalat bhusura bhuyamiyuhu.
नवाभवन योगीश्वर नवान्ये त्वपालयन् भारतवर्षखण्डान् सैका त्वशीतिस्तव शेषपुत्राः तपोबलाद् भूसुर भूयमीयुः नवाभवन योगीवर नवान्ये त्वपालयन् भारतवर्षखण्डान् सैका त्वशीतिस्तव शेषपुत्राः तपोबलाद् भूसुर भूयमीयुः.
The first line is Yogi Vara, Pratibha Garu. The first line, second one. Yogi Vara.
Yogi Vara.
Vijay, you want to do?
Yeah. Nava bhavan yogi vara navanye tvapalayan bharadavarša kantan saika tvasi distava sesha putraha tapopalad bhusura bhuyamiyuhu. Nava bhavan yogi vara navanye tvapalayan bharadavarša kantan सैकात्वशीतिस्तव शेषपुत्राः तपोबलात् भूसुरभूयमीयुः.
This one also says that out of the 100 children, first one Bharata, he goes on, right? We know that story. The second 9 of them become great yogis as well. Other 8 start ruling the various portions of the Bharata Varsha, and the other 81 also start going into penance and austerity. So essentially, they all go into that path because their father, which is Rishabha, is leading that path, which is going to come in the next stanza.
Rajeshi, very sorry to interrupt. Is it putraha or putraha?
Putraha.
Putra. Okay. Thank you.
Putraha. On the Visarga. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Stanza 8. उक्त्वा स्वतेभ्योत मुनीन्द्र मध्ये विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वित मुक्तिमार्गं स्वयं गतः पारमहंस्य वृत्तिम् अदा जडोन्मत्त पिशाचचर्याम्. So while we spoke about Jadabarta, like I said, that's all going to happen later on, right, in the timeline. But in the current timeline, this Rishabha, once, like all his children were also great, Bharata and all the others. So he also gave up everything. And, as he was then going through, there was this like a conglomeration, there's a satsangam that was actually happening. So where Rishabha comes and then he's so enlightened that, he knows everything that is to be known, right? So he then gives very good instructions to everybody, to his children and everybody. He gives knowledge to them saying that, look, of all the beings which are actually born in this earth, right, everybody has a sense of, okay, I like to eat. They have all the sensory pleasures are there for everybody. They all have to fight for survival. They all have a place, the shelter they need. They all have all this, you can see things, you can eat things, you can feel things. Everybody has a sense enjoyment. But he says only the human body has the ability to understand how to come out of all of this, right? So he says, but if you don't, he says there's no difference between you and a dog or a pig, which also has the same sensory pleasures as you. There's absolutely no difference between you and any of these animals because you all have the same sensory pleasures. So he says only the humans have in this body have the advantage of realizing how to get liberated, how to come out of this body. So he says don't waste your time by getting involved in all of those things, and the only way is through to doing penance and doing devotional service, right? So he kind of preaches all of that stuff. However, he also roams around like a jada matta pishacha charyam. So he's also roaming around like a madman because he's given everything. He becomes a paramahamsa, becomes an enlightened one. So when he becomes an enlightened one, he doesn't relate or associate with anything. Nothing is important for him. So he's walking around like a madman. Uktva suthebhyot munindra madhye, विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वित मुक्ति मार्गम स्वयं गतः, put a f, gatah paramahംस्य vrittim, put a im at the end of that line, vrittim, next line the madha becomes adha, adha jhadonmatta pishacha charyam. उक्त्वा सुतेभ्योत मुनीन्द्र मध्ये विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वित मुक्ति मार्गं स्वयं गतः पारमहंस्य वृत्तिम् अधा जडोन्मत्त पिशाचचर्याम्.
उक्त्वा सुतेभ्यो उक्त्वा उक्त्वा सुतेभ्योत मुनीन्द्र मध्ये विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वितमुक्तिमार्गं स्वयं गतः पारमहंस्य वृत्तिम् अदा जडोन्मत्त पिशाचचर्याम्. उक्त्वा सुतेभ्योत मुनीन्द्र मध्ये विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वितमुक्तिमार्गं स्वयं गतः पारमहंस्य वृत्तिम् अदा जडोन्मत्त पिशाचचर्याम्.
उक्त्वा सुदेभ्योद मुनीन्द्र मध्ये विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वित मुक्ति मार्गम स्वयं गतः पारमहं स्वयवृद्धिम् अदा जडोन्मत्त पिशाचचर्याम्.
Vijay, in the third line, paramahamsya, that's one word, okay?
Paramahamsya. Okay. उक्त्वा सुदेभ्योद मुनीन्द्र मध्ये विरक्ति भक्त्यन्वित मुक्ति मार्गम स्वयं गतः पारमहंस्य वृद्धिम् अदा जडोन्मत्तपिशाचचर्याम्
Stanza 9. Paratmabhutopi paropadesham kurvan bhavan sarvanirasyamaanah vikarahino vichachara kritsna mahi mahinat marasabhilinah. So, like he says, he becomes this Rishabha Yogishwara. He becomes Yogishwara means one who's the Ishwara of yogas, which is completely, the Ashtanga yoga which we saw. He had full control over it, right? That's why he's a Yogishwara. And because he was Rishabha the best, he's called Rishabha Yogishwara, right? So he then, becomes something called as an Abadhuta. An Abadhuta is somebody who doesn't care about anything else that happens in this world. So when you walk on the streets, sometimes you see people who don't care about anything that happens. They are in their own world. They look like a madman, right? So this person, however, is enlightened but behaves like that, right? Because they do not associate themselves with the body. They do not associate themselves with any of the social conventions which are there. They are always focused on, doing their prayers, and they're enlightened already, right? That's why it says previous stanza, Paramahamsya. He's already a fully liberated person already. So he then, this Rishabha Yogishwara then goes around because he's already enlightened. People call him all sorts of bad names. They throw stones at him, they urinate at him, and they do all kinds of things. But for him, he was at a point where he doesn't associate himself with his body, right? He had a complete thing. This body is just a vehicle, just like how your sometimes your clothes may get dirty, but you really don't care about it. It's what it is. Similarly, he doesn't care about his body. It was just a vehicle for him, and he was going around and then teaching all the religious principles and how to be and how to be in the varnashrama dharma, how to be in a state where you are in a family mode but still be devoted to the Lord, and still how you can do all the great things. So he goes and preaches a lot of these things, right? And I'll come to the next chance, I'll continue that as to what final takeaway is. But anyway, he behaves like this way, so he becomes a avaduta. Paratma bhutopi paropadesham, kurvan bhavan sarva nirasya manah vikara hino vichachara kritsnam. So it and the is comes first. Kritsnam, and then put plus. Mahi mahinat marasabhilinah. So that word you cannot break it. So you have to say it together. Mahi mahinat marasabhilinah. परात्मभूतोऽपि परोपदेशं कुर्वन् भवान् सर्वनिरस्यमानः विकारहीनो विचचार कृत्स्ना महीमहीनात्मरसाभिलीनः.
परात्मभूतोऽपि परोपदेशं कुर्वन् भवान् सर्वनिरस्यमानः विकारहीनो विचचार कृत्स्नां महीमहीनात्मरसाभिलीनः. परात्मभूतोऽपि परोपदेशं कुर्वन् भवान् सर्वनिरस्यमानः विकारहीनो विचचार कृत्स्नां महीमहीनात्मरसाभिलीनः.
परात्मभूतोऽपि परोपदेशं कुर्वन् भवान् सर्वनिरस्यमानः विकारहीनो विचचार कृत्स्नां महीमहीनात्मरसाभिलीनः. परात्मभूतोऽपि परोपदेशं कुर्वन् भवान् सर्वनिरस्यमानः विकारहीनो विचचार कृत्स्नां महीमहीनात्मरसाभिलीनः.
शह्युव्रतं गोमृगकाकचर्यां चिरञ्चरन्नाप्यपरं स्वरूपं दबाहृताङ्गः कुटकाचले त्वं तापान् ममापाकुरुवातनाथ. Similar to when you see Ramana Maharshi, when you see Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, you look at them, they were completely liberated, but they didn't care about what they were wearing, they didn't care about where they were sitting, what they were eating, right? All of that, right? So that's the Paramahamsa, one who's completely given up everything and is identified himself or herself with the Supreme Lord, right? So here, when you continue this, and we're going to see one very beautiful discussion coming up much later, 95 or something, which talks about how you can learn what you can learn from various beings. So the life you have to live, it talks about is how you have to live like some animals. For example, it says here, Shayu Vratam, you live like a python, because what that means is A python doesn't go in search of food. It just sits where it is. Whatever food comes its way, it's going to eat. So similarly, these people, the renunciated people, whatever food comes, they eat it, right? Whether it's good or it's bad or they don't get anything. If they don't get anything, they say that's Bhagavan's thing today, Sankalpam today, that I'm not going to get any food. So they don't go looking after food, right? That's why even the rishis, when they used to go taking bhiksha, they don't stay in a village for more than 3 4 days, because then they'll realize, oh, you know what, house number 105 sambar is best, right? So they'll start going there every time. So they don't want to get attached to that, right? So they keep moving away. So similarly, it says like a python, they just wait, and then it talks about various things like how like a cow, you see a cow in the streets of India, it's just going on chewing whatever is there. It doesn't care about what traffic is going, who is walking. It's in its own world, right? Anyway, so this, he becomes like that, like the the Avadutha. And one day, once it talks about how in Kutakachala, which is the Coorg region, once he was walking around, and it talks about how he was walking with stones in his mouth, right? That was another type of tapas which he was doing. And then there's forest fire which comes, and then he's burnt or disappeared. There's no history of him after that, right? That is the story of Rishabha Yogishwara. Now I'll ask one question. Anybody can guess what comes out after Rishabha Yogishwara? Because Rishabha Yogishwara happens during Priyabrata time, which is like millions, of years ago. What is the closest religion which is associated with this right now? Sorry, Midlaji, you're on mute.
Jainism.
Jainism. However, there's a catch to it, because in Bhagavatam it says, Bhagavatam was written 5,500 years back. When this was communicated, it says this Rishabha Yogishwara, who thought how to live like an Avadhuta, but he also believed in the supreme power. He believed in a god, and then he attained Ashtasiddhi and everything. However, he says some people along that line recently in Kali Yuga, that's how it talks about, took this concept and started morphing it to the times of Kali Yuga, but it starts deviating from the core principles of what Rishabha Yogishwara taught or preached. So it remained, but over a period of time, it got very impure and diluted and all this thing, and they started forming a new version of it, which it says is the new form of Jainism that is being followed. So it is not quite exactly what Rishabha Yogishwara prescribed, but it takes the core essence of it, and then it adds some masala and things around it for the way that whoever created that religion, wanted it to be, and that kind of becomes that history. So anyway, that is just one reference there. But with this, avataram of the Lord comes to an end, because this was to teach people how to be like that. Like that is the intention of it, because there's a lot of preachings that Rishabha Yogishwara did. So Shayubratam Go Mriga Kaka Charyam, Chiram Charannapya Param Swarupam Dava Hritangaha. Is there? Put a if sound. Dava Hritangah Kutakachale Tvam, Tapan Mamapakuru Vatanatha. Shayubratam Go Mriga Charyam Chiram Charannapya Param Swarupam Dava Hritangah Kutakachale Tvam Tapan Mamapakuru Vatanatha.
शयूव्रतं गोमृगकाकचर्यां चिरं चरन्नाप्यपरं स्वरूपं दवावृताङ्गकुटकाचले त्वं तापान् ममापाकुरु वातनाथ शयूव्रतं गोमृगकाकचर्यां चिरं चरन्नाप्यपरं स्वरूपं दवाहृताङ्गकुटकाचले त्वं तापान् ममापाकुरु वातनाथ
चयुव्रतं कोमृगकाकचर्यां चिरं चरन्नाप्यपरं स्वरूपं दवाकृदाङ्गः कुडकाचले त्वं तापान् ममापाकुरु वातनाथ चयुव्रतं कोमृगकाकचर्यां चिरं चरन्नाप्यपरं स्वरूपं दवाकृदाङ्गः कुडकाचले त्वं तापान् ममापाकुरु वातनाथ.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, so that completes this. So we'll get into just a quick parayana. So I think we'll just go in the same order that is there. I'll also be on mute only. So whoever first, I think it starts with Anita and then Maithili. So just go in that order, right? Once it's done, the next person just start. And if that person doesn't join, the next person continue. Okay. Okay, Anita, you can start.
Dasakam 11. Hiranyakshaya Hiranyakashipocha Utpatti Vartanam. Kramena sarge parivartamane kadabi divya sanakatayaste bhavatvilokaya vikuntalokam prapetire marutamandiresha manogya naishrayasa kananat manogya naishrayasa kananatyaiha अनेकवापि मणिमन्दिरैश्च अनुपमं तं पवतो निकेतं मुनीश्वराः प्रापुरतीतकश्याः भवतीति दृशून् भवन्नं विविशून्. Sorry, sir, how do we sing that line?
Bhavadidrikshun bhavanam vivikshun.
Thank you. Bhavadidrikshun bhavanam vivikshun tvatatav ayastan vijayopyarundam desham cha chitte padamanakopaha sarvam bhavat preranayaiva bhuman vaikundalokanuchitat prasheshtav kashtav yuvam daityakatim bhajetam idhi prashaptau bhavata shrayavtau harish samrutirnostviti neme tustan tade tada jnana bhavanavaptaha sahaiva lakshmya bahirambu jaksha kakeswaram sarpita sharubahu आनन्दयंस्ता नभिराममूर्त्या प्रसाद्य कीर्भिस्तुवतो मुनीन्द्रान् अनन्यनाथा वदपाशतौ तौ सम्भ्रमयोगेन वै स्त्रीभिर्माम् उपेतमित्यादकृपं न्यगादीः त्वदीयभृत्या वदकास्य पातौ शूरारिवीरा विदितौ त्वौ सन्ध्या समुत्पातनकष्टचेष्टौ यामौ च लोकस्य यममाविवान्यौ हिरण्यपूर्वः कशिबुः किलैकः वरो हिरण्याक्ष इति प्रदीतः उपौ भवन्नाथमहेशलोकम् रुषान् युरुन्दां निजवासनान्धौ तयोर्हिरण्याक्ष महासुरेन्द्रो रणाय तावन् नवाप्तवैरी भवत्प्रियां क्षममां शलीले निमग्य चचार कर्वात् विनतन् कदावान् तते जले शत्रुषं भवन्तं निशम्य पभ्रामकवेशयं स्वां भक्तैः तृष्य शुकृपाणि ते त्वं निरिन्दिरोहान् मरुतालयेश.
Dasakam 12. Varaha Avataram. Swayambhuvo Manurato Janasarkashile Drishtva Mahima Samaye Salile Nimagnam Srashtaramapa Saranam Bhavadangiri Seva Dushtasayam Muni Janai Sahasatyaloke Kashtam Praja Srujijati Mayyavanir Nimagnastanam Sarojabhava Kalpaya Tatpara Vrajanam Ityevameva Katito Manuna Suyambu Rambo Rukakshaka Tava Padayukam Vyachinti Aha Vibho Jalamaham Niyabhipam पुरस्तात् यबि मज्जति महीमहं करोमि इत्थं तव तङ्गरियुलोकं शरणं यदोऽस्य नासापुडत् समपव शिशिकोलरूपी अङ्गुष्टमात्रवबुरुत्पदितः पुरस्तात् भूयोदकुम्भिसदृश समरुम्बदास्त्वम् अप्रोततावित मुदीक्षय भवन्दमुच्चैर्विस्मोरतं वितिराकत्सह सुनूभिः स्वैः कोसा वसन्त्य महिमा किटिरुत्ति तोमे नासापुडत् किमुपवदे जिदस्य माया इत्थं विचिन्तयदि दात्री शैलमात्र सत्योपवन् किल जगर्जित घोरघोरं तं ते नीता मुपकर्ण्य जनस्तपस्ता सत्यस्थिताश्च मुनयो नुवुर्पवन्दं तत्स्तोत्र हर्षूलमनः परिणत्य भूयस्तोयासयं विपुलमूर्तिरवातरस्त्वम् ऊर्ध्व प्रसारि परिदुम्र विदोतरोमा प्रोक्षिप्त पालतिरवाङ्गमुख घोरकोनः दूर्न प्रतीर्न जलदः परिपूर्ण दक्षिणस्तोस्तृन् मुनि शिशिर यन्नवतेरितत्वम् अन्तर्जलं ततनु सङ्गुलनक्रचक्रं प्रायं यत्ति तिमिङ्गिलकुलं कलुषोर्मिमालम् आविश्य भीष्णरेवण रसदलस्था नाकम्पयन् वसुमती महवेश्यस्त्वं दृष्ट्वा दैत्य यहदो केन रसादलानन्द संवेशितं जडिति कूटकिटिर्विभोर्त्वम् आबादुकान विकन्य सुरारिकेटन् दंष्ट्राङ्कुरोन वसुधा ममता सलिलम् अभ्युत्तरन् नततरां तसनाकलग्ना मुस्ताङ्कुराङ्कित इवादिकपि वरात्मा उत्रा दुदकोर लज्जते ऋतञ्जन् क्रीटावराह वपुरीश्वरः पाहि रोकात्.
दशकं 13 हिरण्याक्षवत वर्णनम्. हिरण्याक्षं तावत् भवतन्वेषणपरं चरन्तं चाम्बर्ते पयसि निजजङ्का परिमिते भवद्भक्तो कत्वा कपडपडुदीर् नारदमुनिः शनैरुचे नन्दन् दनुजमभि निन्दं स्तव बलं च मायावी विष्णुर्हरति भवतीयां वसुमतीं प्रभो कष्टं किमितमिति तेनापि कदिदः नदन् क्वासौ क्वासाविधि च मुनिना दर्शितपदो भवन्तं सम्प्रापत् तरणिधरम् उद्यन्तमुदगात् अहो आरण्योऽयं मृग इति हसन्तं बहुधरैः दुरुग्धैर्विद्यन्तं तिदिसुदम् अवज्ञाय भगवन् महीं दृष्ट्वा दंष्ट्राशिरसि सकितां स्वेन महशा भयोतावदाय प्रसभं उत युङ्क्ता मृदविदौ गदापानौ दैत्ये त्वमभिः गृहीतोन्नदकदो नियुक्तेन क्रीडन् कडकडरवोद्गुष्टवियतात् रणालोकौत्सुक्यान्मिलति सुरसङ्गे धृतममुं निरन्त्याः सन्त्यादः प्रथममिति दात्रा जगदीशे कदोन्मर्ते तस्मिन् तव खलु कदा यान्ति दिपुवो कदा कादात् भूमौ जडिति पदादा जडिति पदात् पदिता पदितायामहः पो मृदुस्मेरास्यस्त्वं धनुजकुलनिर्मूलनजनं महाचक्रं स्मृत्वा करपुवि तदा नोरुरुषिषे तदशूलं कालप्रतिमर्षि दैत्ये विसृजति त्वयि छिन्दत्येनत् करकलित चक्रप्रहरणात् समारुष्टो मुष्ट्या सकलु विदधं स्वां समदनोत् कलन्माये मायाः त्वयि किल जगन्मोहनहरिः भवच्चक्रज्योतिष्कण लवणिपादेन विदुते तदो माया चक्रे वितत गणरोक्षान्तमनसं करिष्ठाभिर्मुष्टिप्रहृतिभिः अभिघ्नन्तमसुरं कराग्रेण श्वेन श्रवणपदमूले निरवधिः महाकाय सोऽयं तव करसरोजप्रमथितो कलत्रक्तो वक्त्रात् अबदतृक्षिभिक्ष्लागिदहदिः तदा त्वामुत्ताम प्रमदपरविद्योदिः हृदयाः मुनीन्द्रासान्द्राभिः स्तुतिप्पिरणुवन्नत्वरदनुं sorry I missed the tune त्वचिच्छन्तो रोमस्वपि कुजगणसक्षूषीकृतं चतुर्हो तारोङ्ग्रौ श्रुकपि वदने चोदरयिडा ग्रहा जिह्वायां ते परपुरुषकर्णे च चमसाः विपो सोमो वीर्यं वरदकलदेशेऽप्युपसदः मुनीन्द्रैरित्यादि स्तवनमुखरैर्मोदितमनाः महीयस्यामूर्त्या विमलतरकीर्त्या च विलसन् स्वधिष्ण्यं सम्प्राप्तः सुखरसविहारि मधुरिपो निरिन्त्यारोकं मे सकलमपि वातालयपते श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः
कपिलोप्याखानं chapter 14 समनुस्मृततावकाङ्घ्रियुग्मः समनुः पङ्कजसम्भवाङ्गजन्मा निजमन्त्रमन्त्रायहीनं सरितं ते कथयन् सुखं निनाय समये खलु तत्र कर्तमाज्ञो तृहिणिच्चाय भवस्ततीयवाचा धृतसर्गरसो निसर्गरम्यं भववंसद्वमायुधं समाशिषवे गरुडोपरि कालमेघगम्रं विलसत्केलिसरोजपाणिपद्मं हसितोल्लसिताननं विभो त्वं वपुराविष्कुरुष्ये स्म कर्तमाय स्तुवते पुलकावृताय तस्मै मुनुपुत्रीं दयितां नवामि पुत्रीः कपिलं च सुतं स्वमेव पश्चात् स्वगतिं चाप्नुयुगृह्य निर्गतो भूः समनुसदरूपया महिष्या गुणवद्या सुतया च देवहूत्या भवतीरितनारतोपतिष्ठः समगात्कर्म मम कदि प्रदीक्षम् मनुनो बहृतां च देवहूतिं तरुणीरत्नमवाप्य गर्तमोऽसौ भवदर्शननिर्वृतोऽपि दस्यां दृढशुश्रूषणया ततौ प्रसादं स पुनस्त्वतु पाशन प्रभावात् दयिता कामकृते कृते विमाने वनिताकुलसङ्कुलो नवात्मा वयव्यः व्यहरत्तेव पतेषु देवहूत्या सदवर्ष्मत व्यदीत्य सोऽयं नवकन्या समवाप्य धन्यरूपाः वनयानसमुद्यतोऽपि कान्ताहितकृद्वज्जननोत्सुको न्यवासीत् निजभर्तृकिराभवेन्निषेवा निरतायामत देवदेवहूत्यां कपिलस्त्वमजायता जनानां प्रतयिष्यन् परमात्मतत्त्वविद्यां वनमेयुषि गर्दमे प्रसन्ने मदसर्वस्वमुपाधियस्यञ्जनन्यै कपिलात्मकवायुमन्तिरेश द्वरितं त्वं परिपाहि मां कदौकात्.
Matiriha Gunasakta. Let me see. Okay. Matiriha Gunasakta Bantakritte Swasaktat Amrita Krudu Purundhe Bhakti Yogastu Saktim Mahadanugam Alabhya Bhakti Reva Trasadhya Kapila Tanurtitvam Deva Hotyanyagadi Prakriti Mahad Ahankarascha Matrascha Bhutani Apihridapi Dashakshi Purushav Panchavinshah iti vidita vibhago muchyate sau prakrtya kapilathanuriti-tvam devahutyainyagadi prakriti-gata gunau ghairihi najyate purushoyam yaditu sajati tasyam tadgunastam bhajeran madannu bhajana tattvalocanai sapyapeyat Kapilatanurtitvam devahutyainyagadihi Vimalamatir upattaihi asanadhyai madangam Garuda samadhirudham divya bhusayudhankam Ruchitulitamalam shilayetanuvelam Kapilatanurtitvam devahutyainyagadihi Mama gunagana lila karnanaihi कीर्तनाद्यैः मयि सुरसरिदोघ प्रखच्चित्तानुवृत्तिः भवति परमभक्तिः सा हि मृत्योर्विजेत्री कपिलतनुर्तिद्वं देवहूत्यैन्यगादीः अहह बहुलहंसा सञ्चितार्थैः कुटुम्बं प्रतिदिनं नमनुपुष्णन् स्त्रीजितो बाललाली विशतिः गृहसक्तो यातनामय्य भक्तः कपिलतनुर्तित्वं देवहूत्यैन्यगादीः युवति जठर भिन्नो जातबोधोऽप्यकण्ठे प्रसवगलितबोधः पीडयोल्लङ्घ्य बाल्यम् पुनरपि बत मुह्यत्येव तारुण्यकाले कपिलतनुर्तिद्वं देवहूत्यैन्यगादीः पितृसुरगणयाजी धार्मिको योगहस्थः स च निपतति काले दक्षिणाद्वोपगामी मयि निहितम कामं कर्म तु दक्पथार्थं कपिलतनुर्तिद्वं देवहूत्यैन्यगादीः इति सुविदितवेद्यां देवहे देवहूत्यं कृतनुतिमनुगृह्य त्वं गतो योगिसङ्घैः विमलमतिरथासौ भक्तियोगेन मुक्ता त्वमपि जनहितार्थं वर्तसे प्रागुदीच्याम् परमखिमु बहूत्या त्वत्पदां भोजभक्तिं सकलभयविनेत्रीं सर्वकामोपनेत्रीं यदसि खलु दृढं त्वं तद्विधूयामयान्मे गुरुपवनपुरेश त्वय्युपाधत्स्वभक्तिम्.
Rajeshri, excuse me, Radha here. I had signed up for 15, so did you allot me with anything else?
இல்ல அதான் 15 தான். நீங்க அந்த 20 முடிச்சிட்டு then I think Shashi is doing 11, Bhuvana is doing 14, then you do 15. Okay, so in the
next time.
Yeah, we'll finish 20 and then we'll start again, right? At that time you do it. Okay.
नरनारायणवतार वर्णनं दक्षायाग वर्णनं च दक्षो विरिञ्चतनयोधमनोस्तनूजां लब्ध्वा प्रसूतिमिह षोडश चापकन्याः धर्मे त्रयोदश ददौ पितृषु स्वधां च स्वाहां हविर्भुजि सतीं गिरिशे त्वदंशे मूर्तिर्हि धर्मगृहिणी सुषुवे भवन्तं नारायणं नरसखं महितानुभावम् यज्जन्मनि प्रमुदिता कृततूर्यघोषाः पुष्पोत्करान् प्रबभुषुर्नुनुगुः सुरौघाः दैत्यं सहस्रकवचं कवचैः परीतं साहस्रवत्सरतपःसमराभिलवैः साहस्रवत्सरतपस्यमराभिलव्यैः पर्याय निर्मिततपःसमरौ भवन्तौ शिष्टैककङ्कटममुं न्यहतां सलीलम् अन्वाचरुनुपदि शन्नपि मोक्षधर्मं त्वं भ्रातृमान् बदरिकाश्रममद्यवात्सीः शक्रोदथे समतपो बलनिस्सहात्मा दिव्याङ्गना परिवृतं प्रजिघायमारम् कामो वसन्तमलयानिलबन्धुशाली कान्ताकटाक्षविशिखैर्विकसद्विलासैः विद्यन्मुहुरकम्पमुदीक्ष्य च त्वां भीरुस्त्वयाथ जगदे मृदुहासबाझा भीत्यालमङ्गज वसन्तसुराङ्गनावो मन्मानसं त्विह जुषध्वमिति ब्रुवाणः त्वं विस्मयेन परितस्तुवतामथैषां प्रादर्शयः स्वपरिचारककातराक्षीः सम्मोहनाय मिलिता मदनादयस्ते त्वद्धासिका परिमलैः किल मोहमापुः दत्तां त्वया च जगृहुस्त्रपयैव सर्वासि गर्वशमनीं पुनरुर्वशिषीं तां दृष्टोर्वशीं तव कथां च निशम्य शक्रः पर्याकुलो जनिभवन्महिमावमर्शात् एवं प्रशान्तररमणीयतरावतारात् त्वत्तोदिको वरद कृष्णतनुस्त्वमेव दक्षस्तु धातुरतिलालनयारजोन्धो नात्यादृतस्त्वयि च कष्टमशान्तिरासीत् येन व्यरुन्धस भवत्तनुमेव शर्वम् यज्ञे च वैरुपिशुने ससुतां व्यमानीत् क्रुद्धे समर्धितमघः स तु कृत्तशीर्षो देवप्रसादितहराद्धलब्धजीवः त्वत्पूरितक्रतुवरः पुनरापशान्तिं सत्वं प्रशान्तिकर पाहि मरुत्पुरेश।
Om Sri Krishnaya Paratmane Namaha. Dasakam 17 Dhruvacharitam. Uttana pada nrupader manunandanasya jaya papuva suruchir nitarama phishta anya sunitiri partura natrutasa tvameva nityamagadi sharanam gata bhuta ange pitus suruji putragam uttamam tam दृष्ट्वा ध्रुवः किल सुनीति सुतोतिरोक्ष्यन् आचिक्षिपे किल शिशु सुतरां सुरुच्या दुस्सन्ध्य च खलु भव द्विमुखैरसूया त्वन्मोहिते पिदरि पश्यति दारवश्ये दूरं दुरुक्तिनिहतः सगतो निजाम्बां स्वापि स्वकर्मगदि सन्दरणाय पुंसां त्वत्पादमेव शरणं शिशवे शशंसा आकर्ण्यसोऽपि भवदर्चन निश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नगरात् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्दृष्टनारद निवेदित मन्त्रमार्गः त्वामारराथ तपसा मधुकाननान्दे ताते विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन परिसान्वितचित्तवृत्तौ फालस्त्वदर्पितमनः क्रमवर्तितेन निन्ये कठोरतपसा किल पञ्चमासान् तावत्तपोबलनिरुच्छ्वसिते दिगन्धे देवार्तितस्त्वमुदयत् करुणार्द्रचेताः तद्रूपचिद्रसनिलीनमतिः पुरस्तात् आविर्बभूविद विभो गरुडादिरूढः त्वद्दर्शनप्रमदभार तरङ्गितं तं दृग्भ्यां निमग्नमिव रूपरसायने ते तुष्टुषमाणमवगम्य कपोलदेशे संस्पृष्टवानसि दरेण तथादरेण तावद्विबोधविमलं प्रणुवन्दमेनम् आभाषथास्त्वम् अवगम्य त्वदीयभावम् राज्यं चिरं समनुभूय भजस्व भूयः सर्वोत्तरं ध्रुवपदं विनिवृत्तिहीनम् इत्यूचिषि त्वयि गदे नृपनन्दनोऽसौ आनन्दिताखिलजनो नगरीमुपेतः रेमे चिरं भवदनुग्रह पूर्णकामः तादेकदेच्छ वनमादृद राज्यभारः यक्षेण देवानिहदे पुनरुत्तमेऽस्मिन् यक्षैः स युद्धनिरतो विरतो मनुक्त्या शान्त्या प्रसन्नहृदयात् धनदात् उपेतात् त्वद्भक्तिमेव सुदृढाम् अवृणो महात्मा अन्धे भवत्पुरुषनीत विमानयातो मात्रा समं ध्रुवपदे मुदितो यमास्ते एवं स्वभृत्यजनपालन लोलधिस्त्वं वातालयाधिप निरुन्दिममामयौखान्। ओम श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः।
श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः। ऋतुचरितवर्णनं जातस्य ध्रुवकुल एव तुङ्गकीर्तेः अङ्गस्य व्यजनिसुतस्य वेन नामा व्यतितमतिः स राज्यवर्यः त्वत्पादे निहितमनावनं गदोऽभूत् पापोऽपि शिथितलपालनाय वेनः पौराद्यैरुपनिहितकठोर्यवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमवेव प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्ययं न्यौरसीत् सम्प्राप्ते हितगतनाय तापशौके मध्वोऽन्यो भुवनपतिर्न कच्छनेति त्वन्निन्दावचनपरो मुनीश्वरैस्तैः शाभाग्नौ सलभदशामनायिवेनः तन्नाषट्कलजनभीरुगैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तथङ्के त्यक्तागे परिमदाद दोरुदण्डात् दुर्दण्डे परिमतिते त्वमाविरासीः विख्यातपृतुरिति तापसोपतिष्ठैः सुदात्यै परिणितभाविभूरिवीर्यः वेनाद्या कपिलतसम्पदं दरिद्रीम् आक्रान्तं निजधनुषा समामकार्षीः भूयस्तं निजकुलमुख्यवत्सयुक्तैः देवात्यै समुचितचारुभाजनेषु अन्नादीन्यपि लसितानि यानि तानि सच्छन्तं सुरभितनुमधुदहस्त्वम् आत्मानं यजति मगैस्त्वयि धृतामन्न आरब्धे सततमवाजिमे तयागे स्पर्धालुष्यतमगयेत्यनीचवेषो हृद्वा स्वं तव तनयात् पराजितोऽभूत् देवेन्द्रं मुहुरिति वाजिनं हरन्तं वग्नौ तं मुनिवरमण्डले जुहूषौ रुद्धाने कमलभवे कृतो समाब्धौ साक्षात् त्वं मधुरिमि ऐक्षतां स्वयं स्वं तद्धद्धं वरमुलभ्य भक्तिमेघां गङ्गान्ते विगितपदगधनाभिदेव सत्रस्तं मुनिनिवहं हितानि संसन् ऐशिष्टासनकमुखान् मुनीन् पुरस्तात् विज्ञानं सनकमुखोदितं दधानः स्वात्मानं स्वयमगमो वनान्तसेवी तद्दादृक्पृथुव पुरीससत्वरं मे रोगौगं प्रशमय वादके हवासिन् श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Looks like Venkat Garu is not there, so you want to do 20? We'll do 19.
Yeah. Yeah. दशकं 20 ऋषभयोगीश्वरचरितं वर्णनम् प्रियव्रतस्य प्रियपुत्रभूतात् आग्निद्रराजादुदितो हि नाभिः त्वां दृष्ट्वा निष्टमिष्टमध्ये तवैव तुष्ट्यै कृतयज्ञकर्मा अभिष्टुतस्तत्र मुनीश्वरैस्त्वं राज्ञस्वतुल्यं सुतमार्थ्यमानः स्वयं जनिष्येऽहमिति ब्रुवाणः तिरोददावर्हिषि विश्वमूर्ते नाभिप्रियायामथमीरुदेव्यां त्वमंशतो भूर्वृषभाभिधानः सामान्यगुणप्रभावः प्रभाविताशेषजनप्रमोदः त्वयि त्रिलोकी भृतिराज्यभारं निधाय नाभि सह मीरुदेव्या तपोवनं प्राप्य भवन्नि निषेवी गतः किलानन्दपदं पदं ते इन्द्रस्त्वदुत्कर्षकृतादमर्षात् ववर्षनास्मिन् अजनाभवर्षे यदा तदा त्वं निजयोगशक्त्या स्ववर्षमेन व्यदधासु जितेन्द्रदत्तां कमनीं जयन्तीम् अथोद्वहन् आत्मरताशयोऽपि अजीजनस्तत्र शतं तनुजानिष् अजीजनस्तत्र शतं
Tanujan.
अजीजनस्तत्र शतं तनूजान् येषां क्षितीशो भरतोऽग्रजन्मा न वा भवन् योगिवरा न वान्ये त्वपालयन् भारतवर्षखण्डान् सैकात्वशीतिस्तव शेषपुत्राः तपोबलाद् भूसुरभूयमीयुः उक्त्वा सुतेभ्योऽत मुनीन्द्रमध्ये विरक्तिभक्त्यान्वितमुक्तिमार्गं स्वयं गत पारमहंस्यवृत्तिम् अधा जडोन्मत्तपिशाचचर्यां परात्मभूतोऽपि परोपदेशं कुर्वन् भवान् सर्वनिरस्यमानः विकारहीनो विचचार कृत्स्नां महीमहीनात्मरसाभिलीनः शयुव्रतं गोमृगकाकचर्यां चिरं चरन्नाप्यपरं स्वरूपम् दवाहृताङ्गकुटकाचले त्वं तापान् ममापाकुरु वातनाथ श्रीकृष्ण.
Shall I continue with Dasakam?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can continue with 11. Yeah.
Dasakam 11. क्रमेण सर्गे परिवर्धमाने कथापि दिव्यासनकादयस्ते भवद्विलोकाय विकुन्तलोकं प्रपेदिरे मारुतमण्डिदेश मनोज्ञनैश्रेयसकानन दैहि अनेकवापि मणिमन्दिरैश्च अनुपमं तं भवतो निकेतं मुनीश्वराः मुनीश्वराः प्रापुरतीत कक्ष्याः भवद्दिदृक्षून् भवनं विविक्षून् द्वास्तौ जयस्तान् विजयोऽप्यरुन्दाम् तेषां च चित्ते पदमापकोपः सर्वं भवत्प्रेरणयैव भूमन् वैकुण्ठलोकान् उचितप्रचेष्टौ कष्टौ युवां दैत्यगतिं भजेतम् इति प्रशाप्तौ भवदा श्रियौतौ हरस्मृतिर्नो स्त्वितिनेमतुस्तान् तदेतदाज्ञ भवानवाप्तः सहैव लक्ष्म्या बहिरम्बुजाक्ष खगेश्वरां सार्पितचारुबाहुः आनन्दयंस्तान् अभिराममूर्त्या प्रसाद्य गीर्भिस्तुवतो मुनीन्द्राः आनन्यनाथा वतपाशदौतौ संरम्भयोगेन भवैस्थिराभिर्मम् उपेतमित्यात कृपम्न्यागादिः त्वदीयभीत्यावत कश्यपातौ सुरारिवीरा उदितौ त्वौ सन्ध्यासमुत्पादनकष्टसेष्टौ यमौ च लोकस्य यमाविवान्यौ हिरण्यपूर्वा कशिपुः किलैकः परो हिरण्याक्ष इति प्रार्थिताः उभौ भवान्नाथ महेशलोकं रुषान्यरुन्दां निजवासनान्दौ तयो हिरण्याक्ष महासुरेन्द्रो रणाय धावन्ननवाप्तवैरी भवत्प्रियां कष्मां सलीलनिजम्य चचार गर्वाद् विनदन् गदावान् ततो जलेशात् सदृशं भवन्तं निशम्य बभ्राम गवेष्यंस्त्वां भक्तैकदृक्ष्यास कृपानिदे त्वं निरुन्दिरोहान् मृडाल येष.
Chapter 14 Kapilavatarah समनुस्मृततावकाङ्घ्रियुग्मः समनौ पङ्कजसम्भवाङ्गजन्म निजमन्तरमन्तराय हीनं चरितं ते कथयन् सुखं निनाय समये खलु तत्र कर्दमाख्यो द्रुहिणज्जाय भवस्तदीयवाचा धृतसर्गरसो निसर्गरम्यं भगवंस्त्वामयुतं समासिषेवे गरुडोपरि कालमेघकम्रं विलसत्केलिसरोजपाणिपद्मं हसितोल्लसिताननं विभो त्वं वपुराविष्कुरुषे स्म कर्दमाय स्तुवते पुलकावृताय तस्मै मनुपुत्रीं दयितां न वापि पुत्रीः कपिलं च सुतं स्वमेव पश्चात् स्वगतिं चाप्यनुगृह्य निर्गतो भूः समनुष्यतरूपया महिष्या गुणवत्या सुतया च देवहूत्या भवदीरितनारदोपदिष्टः समगात् कर्दममागति प्रतीक्षं मनुनोपहृतां च देवहूतिं तरुणीरत्नमवाप्य कर्दमोऽसौ भवदर्चन निर्वृतोऽपि तस्यां दृढशुश्रूषणया दधौ प्रसादम् सपुनस्त्वदुपासनप्रभावात् दयिता कामकृते कृते विमाने वनिताकुलसङ्कुलो नवात्मा व्यहरत्येव पथेषु देवहूत्या शतवर्षमथ व्यतीयसोऽयं नवकन्या समवाप्य धन्यरूपाः वनयानसमुद्यतोऽपि कान्ताहृतकृद्वज्जननोत्सुको न्यवात्सीत् निजभर्तृगिरा भवन्निषेवा निरतायां तदेव देवहूत्यां कपिलस्त्वमजायथा जनानां प्रथयिष्यन् परमात्मतत्त्वविद्यां वनमेयुषि कर्दमे प्रसन्ने मत सर्वस्वमुपादिशन् जनन्यै कपिलात्मकवायुमन्दिरेश त्वरितं त्वं परिपाहि मां गदौघात् श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे दशकं 15 कपिलोपदेशः मतिरिह गुणसक्ता बन्धुकृते प्रसुक्तात् अमृतकृतपरुन्दे भक्तियोगस्तु शक्तिं महदनुगमलभ्या भक्तिरेवात्र साध्य कपिलतनुरितित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः राजश्री அந்த டியூன் மறந்து போயிட்டேன்
4-liner tune. Prakriti mahadahankarascha matrascha bhutani.
प्रकृति महदंकार राश्च मात्राश्च भूतानि अपि हृदपि दक्षाचि पुरुष पंचविंशः इति विदिति विभागो मुच्यते सौ प्रकृत्याः कपिलतनुरितित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः प्रकृतिगतगुणौघैर्नाच्यते पुरुषो वयं यदि तु सचति तस्यां तद्गुणस्थां भजेरन् मदनुभजन तत्त्वालोचने साप्यपेयात् कपिलतनुरित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः विमलमतिरुपात्यैः आसनाद्यैर्मदङ्गं गरुडसमधिरूढं दिव्यभूषायुधाङ्कं रुचितुतुलतमालं शीलयेतानुवेलं कपिलतनुरितित्वं देव्यहूत्यै नगादीः मम गुणगणलीलाकर्णनैः कीर्तनाद्यैः मैसुरसरिधोगप प्रख्यचित्तानुवृत्तिः भवति परमभक्तिः सा हि मृत्योर्विजेत्री कपिलतनुरितित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः अहह बहुल हिंसा सञ्चितार्थै कुटुम्बं प्रतिदिनम् अनुपुष्णन् श्रीजितो बाललाली विशति गृहसक्तो यातनां मय्यभक्तः कपिलतनुरितित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः युवति जठरकिन्नो जातबोधोऽप्यकाण्डे प्रसवगलितबोध कीडयोल्लङ्घ्य बाल्यं पुनरपि भत मुहूर्त्येव तारुण्यकाले कपिलतनुरितित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः पितृसुरगणयाजी धार्मिको यो गृहस्थः स च निपतितकाले दक्षिणोद्वापगामी महिनिहितकामं कर्म तु दत्पदार्थं कपिलतनुरितित्वं देवहूत्यै नगादीः इति सुविदितमेध्यां देवही देवहूतिं कृतनुतिमनुगृह्य त्वं गतो योगिसङ्गैः विमलमतिरथासो भक्तियोगेन मुक्ता त्वमपि जनहितार्थं वर्तसे प्राग्युदीक्ष्यां परम किमुपहूत्या त्वत्पदां भोजभक्तिं सकलभयविनेत्रीं सर्वकामोननेत्रीं वदसि खलु दृढत्वं तद्विदूर्म्यं मयान्मे गुरुपवनपुरेश त्वयिमुपादत्वभक्तिं श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
And we'll stop the class here today. सान्द्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं
Radhe Krishna, Rajesh.
कालधेशावदिभ्याम्. Oh, sorry, Venkat, you back?
Yeah. Can I do it? I will. I have. Okay.
Please do it.
Sorry. प्रचेतसां कथा पृथोस्तु नप्ता पृथुधर्म कर्मटः प्राचीन बर्हिर्युवतौ शतद्रुतौ प्रचेतसो नाम सुचेतसः सुतान् अजीन जत्वत् करुणाङ्कुरानिव पितुस्य सृक्षा निरतस्य शासनात् भवत्तपस्या निरतादशापिते वयोनिधिं पश्चिममेत्य तत्तटे सुरोवरं सन्ददृशुर्मनोहरम् तदा भवत्तीर्थमिदं समागतो भवो भवत्सेवकदर्शनादृतः प्रकाशमासाद्य पुरः प्रचेतसाम् उपादिशद्भक्ततमस्तवस्तवम् स्तवं जपन्तममीरजलान्तरे भवन्तमासे विशतायुतं समाः भवत्सुखास्वादरसादिमीश्वियान् बभूव कालो ध्रुववन्न शीघ्रता तपोभिरेषामतिमात्रवर्धिभिः स यज्ञहिंसां नरतोऽपि पावितः पितापि तेषां गृहयातनारदः प्रदर्शितात्मा भवतात्मतां ययौ कृपाबलेनैव पुरः प्रचेतसां प्रकाशमागाः पतकेन्द्रवाहनः विराजचक्रादिवरायुधांशुभिः भुजाभिराभिष्टभिरुदञ्चितद्युतिः प्रचेतसां तावदया च तामपि त्वमेव कारुण्यभराद्वरानदाः भवद्विचिन्तापि शिवाय देहिनां भवद्वसौ रुद्रनुतिश्च कामदा अवाप्य कान्तां तनयां महीरुहां तया रमध्वं दशलक्षवत्सरीं सुतोस्तु दक्षो ननु तक्षणाच्च मां प्रयास्ततेति न्यगदो मुदैवतान् ततश्च ते भूतलरोधिनस्तरून् हृदा दहन्तो द्रुहिणेन वारिताः द्रुमैश्च दत्तां तनयामवाप्यतां त्वदुक्तकालं सुखिनोभिरेभिरे अवाप्य दक्षं च सुतं कृतध्वराः प्रचेतसो नारदलब्धया धिया उवापुरानन्दपदं तथाविदः त्वमीश वातालयनाथ पाहि माम्. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Thank you, Rajesh, for accommodating.
Always. Okay, we'll end the class here today. सान्ध्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालधेशावदेभ्यां निर्मोक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानाम् कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everyone. See you next class.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Rajesh.
Rajesh.
Bye.
Thank you.